Welcome to my workshop. In today's video I'm going to show you a quick and simple process on how to cut lap joints on your table saw. And I'm going to cover three types of lap joints. First of all, end half lap joint. Then we're going to go to cross lap joint. And finally, an angled lap joint as well. So let's start. For this I'm going to be using my mitre gauge with a sacrificial fence. It's just an 18mm piece of MDF screwed onto my mitre gauge. It's important for the fence to be a little bit longer, okay, so it goes beyond the level of the blade. In my case, it's about 28 centimeters longer. That will give us the ability to clamp down our positive stops, but I'll show you that in a second. For a perfect half lap joint, we need to establish the correct position height of our blade. For that, I'm going to be using a scrap piece of the material I'm going to be using for my project. Initially, I'm going to eyeball the height of my blade just below the middle point of my board. That will give us the ability to actually sneak up on the perfect middle of our board. After the first cut, I'm just flipping over the board and making the cut again. As you can see, we've got some material left. So I'm going to raise the blade a little bit higher and do both of the cuts again. And I'll do this process until I've got just a sliver left of the material. And there you go. That's the perfect height for this particular material for a half lap joint. Okay, just a sliver left, just like so. To speed up the whole process of cutting the end half flaps, what you're going to need is a spacer, okay? And the spacer needs to be to the thickness of your blade, okay? So in my case, the thickness, the curve of my blade is a little bit unstandard. It's 2.4 millimeters, and that's the piece of timber I managed to cut to that size. However, if, for example, your blade is more or less a standard thickness, then what you can use as a spacer is a drill bit, okay? So I do have 3mm drill bit just over here, and I could use that as a spacer if my blade was 3mm. However, I do have a drill bit that's 2.5mm, and to be fair, I probably could get away with this drill bit. We'll have a look if I'm going to use this or the spacer I made. If you want to find out how I made my spacer, well, I've got this piece of pine and I've got my gauge over here. I've set it up to 2.4mm, cross the line over here and just took it over to my mitre saw. And now make sure to measure that with your calipers to make sure it is exactly what you're after. And in my case, I think the tolerance is just fine. 2.42 is perfect. But don't get befooled. That took me about 3 or 4 attempts to get it to this stage. To make sure that our spacer is at the correct thickness, make a cut in your scrap piece and offer the spacer to the groove made by the blade. If it fits snugly, Bob's your uncle. In my case, it's a perfect fit. Let's have a look at the drill bit. That's 2.5mm, and that fits as well. So in my case, I can use either the drill bit or the spacer. So let's sort out some end half flaps, right? What you're going to need a piece of timber as well that will act as a stop block. First of all, what I'm going to do, as I want to combine these two pieces, I'm going to offer one to the side of the blade itself and then offer our stop block, and with a clamp lock it down in place. So now we've got the correct distance for the thickness of our material. However, if you do that and offer your piece like so, then we're going to be cutting a little bit too much by the thickness of the blade, and that's why we need our spacer. Put it against our stop block, offer our piece to it, and that's it. This is our correct distance that we need to make the first cut. And I'm going to follow the same process with the second piece. Right, second piece completed, and check this out. No measuring, no nothing. Perfect half lap joint, nice and flush, absolutely perfect joint. Can't get any easier than this. As you can see, this method is super simple and easy to follow, and to be fair, you don't even have to mess around with that shim. You don't have to create it yourself, just use a drill bit to the size of your blade. But what if you need your joinery to be in the middle of the board, a cross lap? Let me show you. Now hopefully you can see this. I've marked up the piece and where I want to remove some stock. Now the way we need to arrange this is to make sure that our blade is now on that line, on the outside section. So in theory, we would be cutting on outside perimeter of our marks. Now we're going to place our stop block, clamp it down, and for the first cut, again, we're going to use the shim, just like so. Thanks to that, we have moved the position of our board, and now the blade will be cutting in the section that we want. Now we need to make a cut on the other side. This time I'm going to use my mating piece, okay, to establish that position. Thanks to this setup, we're going to have a perfect fit. And check that out. Nice, perfect fit. Flush at the front, flush at the top. Absolutely gorgeous. Now what if you want to do half laps on pieces that are at certain angle? In this case, I've got 15 degrees. Now the stop block itself, that also needs to be cut to 15 degrees. And our miter gauge, that needs to be changed to 15 degrees as well. Check out the setup is more or less exactly the same. First of all, we off our piece to the blade itself so we can establish the correct position of our stop block. Everything is matching together nicely. Now lock the position of our stop block in place with a clamp. We can offer our piece to the stop block, but don't forget about the shim itself to make sure we're in the right position. And now we can make our first cut. With both pieces sorted, now check this out. 15-degree angle, half lap joint. Beautiful, flush at every point. And as you've seen, super simple to do, no hassle at all. Now I hope today's video was informative and brought you a bit of knowledge on, well, how to cut half laps on your table saw. And talking about a table saw, if you're interested what table saw I was using for these tests, well, is the Evolution R255TBLX, is the new Evolution table saw, and I have to say it's absolutely fantastic. I've got some videos on it already, so if you're in a market for a new table saw or looking for an upgrade, I think this is absolutely perfect. And it's not going to break the bank. I'm going to leave some links to my videos down below, and also I do have a discount code for this saw, or actually any item on the Evolution website. Details on that again in the description of this video. Now at this point I just want to say a massive thank you to my Patreons for the ongoing support, and don't go just yet. Check out these two cool playlists. Plenty of great videos already there. Click on them and maybe you'll find your next one to watch. For today, that's all. Thank you so much. Take care.